Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, the podcast where we delve into the world of CMS systems and their crucial role in website and web content development. In each episode, we'll explore the reasons why founders, CEOs, CTOs, and CMOs of web content development companies need CMS systems to thrive in the digital landscape. Get ready to uncover the secrets behind successful website management, content creation, and seamless user experiences. Here's your host, Jonathan Ames.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Web Content Development, a podcast by Butter CMS. Today we've got Rick Wingender, a fractional CMO and CDO at Small Biz Coach, to talk about e-commerce. Welcome, Rick.
Hi, John. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. I mean, you've worked in a number of different places. How'd you get started in e-commerce, and what are some of the projects you've worked on?
Yeah, I can't really keep a job, right? So I've been in the e-commerce space for a really, really long time. I bet you probably longer than, most of your listeners, viewers, and guests. I got my start in e-commerce, I guess you could say all the way back in 1995, but as a paid employee, not until 1999, I think it was, with Circuit City. So back in 1995, I was the store manager for a Circuit City store. And I was already infatuated with the idea of being able to sell online and working for Circuit City with, a big company with big resources. I thought, hey, we should be selling online. We didn't even have a website yet. So I threw some HTML together, created our very first website ever for circuitcity.com. I wrote the code and sent it off on a zip disk. Tells you how old I am. Sent it to a guy who would become my future boss a few years later, George Barr, his name was. So we got it up there. I finished up my stint as a store manager. Then I became Circuit City's computer buyer for a couple of years. And before that opportunity came along to actually relaunch circuitcity.com as an e-commerce enabled website. We did that in 1999. And I have a plaque behind me on the wall behind me, which I don't think you can see, but big ad that we took out in Twice Magazine commemorating the event. And so it's been, 25 years.
No, and that was the very dawn of e-commerce back then. I mean, a lot of our listeners might have still been in school when that happened. Some not even born. As far as e-commerce, if you were to give somebody advice from this vast set of experiences you had about operating an e-commerce website, from a content perspective, what's the first bit of advice you give them?
Hard question, because there's a lot of advice that I could give. From a content perspective, though, I would say, remember that your customers may not be familiar with your company, your brand, or your product. They can't touch it. They can't taste it. They can't try it on. So all of your content, from a product description to blog articles to videos or policy pages, all of that stuff, it all needs to be very clear. It all needs to be very compelling. Your customers are at a disadvantage because they're not in a physical store. So your content needs to fill in that experience gap for them. So that would be one bit of advice that I would give. I would also say that you have to really create a content plan. I like to say that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Of course, everybody's got very limited time and resources when it comes to being able to create content. So if you're operating an e-commerce site, you have to engage with both people and search engines, right? And good, fresh content is always needed, always rewarded. But start with a plan and an outline that you can actually accomplish. You'll need product descriptions, obviously, for an e-commerce site. You may need to write blog posts. Product descriptions, blog posts, new product announcements is a big one. Usage tips, success stories. So within your blog content or your product descriptions, include success stories. You may need to write landing pages, especially if you're going for backlinks for SEO, or if you're using PPC ads, you have to have good, solid landing pages. You may be selling a product that needs video to really explain it well or to sell it. So video creation and publishing onto your site and onto YouTube, other video sites, social sites, and more. But the point is, you really need to plan it all out or you won't be able to successfully execute everything. This will be a learning process, but you don't want to, have an ad hoc learning process or an ad hoc production content creation process forever. So another thing I would say is that, of course, your content plan will be more effective if you know who you're creating it for. You need to really know your customer, understand your customers, understand their needs and their wants. You need to talk to your customers very regularly. That will provide a guide for your content planning. And then lastly, I would say, or I would advise you to think like a professional salesperson. So not like a sleazy, slimy car salesman. No offense to anybody who may be a car salesman, but rather a true professional who understands human behavior. So you need to understand the steps of the buying journey or the steps of the decision-making process. If you've never had any legitimate, detailed, in-depth sales training, then creating good, effective content will always be harder for you to do. True professionals understand the steps of the sale, including things like rapport building, qualifying customers, anticipating and responding to objections, conducting a needs analysis, storytelling, presenting feature benefit statements, closing and asking for the sale. There's a lot more to it, of course, but those would be some of the first pieces of advice I would give to somebody who is developing an e-commerce website selling product.
No, it's great advice. I love the idea of a content plan. It just goes over the fact that there's a lot of different pieces of content that need to be thought out for each product. I don't think I've ever left a product details page, especially because there was too much content, but I've many times left because there wasn't enough content. So just understanding that and putting it into a process will help you develop out that content. I also love the idea that you had of really studying sales strategy and then taking and putting that into your content. You know, what's the customer journey? What are the things that you're going to have to do to get them from when they first land on your page to knowing your company, like you were saying, to understanding this product, and then having the confidence to be able to put in their credit card and make that purchase. So I love that you talked about that. Really good things in there. You talked about product detail pages. So this is a really common, even if you have an existing e-commerce site, you're in there day to day working on these. What are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing on these product detail pages that people are making?
And this is a really, really, really long list. We could do a whole podcast. Here's one of the funny things about product detail pages. There's a book, Usability by Jacob Nielsen. It's an old book, but it still has a lot of really good advice. A lot of the advice is very timeless. And another thing I would point out to people is you can go look at Amazon.com, okay? Go look at a product detail page and you will see, if you have a really open mind about this, just as an experiment, look at their product detail page and then just watch how it evolves over time. I look at their product detail pages on a very regular basis, okay? And over the years, it has changed. And you might think that what Amazon does is best practice. But I've talked to Amazon people and they say, no, our product pages are crap. They violate every best practice in the book. But Amazon can get away with that. And the reason that Amazon can get away with that is because they sell by far more product via e-commerce than anybody else does. Therefore, they set the standard. Okay. They set the expectations in customers' minds. Okay. So they can get away with that and you can't. You just, if you make the same mistakes that Amazon does, that's not as big of a sin as if you go off and you do something that not Amazon is not doing, nor is it considered best UI, UX best practice. Okay. So that's what you really want to avoid is avoiding those UI, UX, those kinds of mistakes. So if you're going to screw up the same way that Amazon does, because they've already become accustomed to what Amazon does and crowding the page and irrelevant information and all kinds of mistakes that they make. So that said, like I said, it is a very long list. Just a couple of thoughts right off the top of my head. And I actually have a bunch of thoughts that I can go a little bit more in depth into. But missing critical information, missing or poor product images, poor spelling and grammar. That one drives me absolutely crazy. You can talk about brand too, and feel free to ask me any questions about branding and brand promise, brand image, brand messaging. I'm a branding guy, so I love all that stuff. But poor spelling, poor grammar, that's one of the big ones. If you're looking for a quick and easy way to damage your brand, just have some poor spelling, poor grammar on your product pages or any page on your website for that matter. Duplicate title tags. So, on an SEO aspect, I know that you've had a lot of guests that have talked about SEO, various SEO, and I can talk about that stuff too, but I won't get into SEO too much because other people have done that already. But duplicate title tags, I think, on a product page is one of the big ones right there. It hurts getting found. Not staying true to brand. Expired promotions in your titles. That's a big. This is one of the things I actually see this a lot where somebody will say, I did a consulting engagement with a gun ammo seller not long ago, and the web merchandiser was putting promotional information, sale information in the title of each one of the, the headline, the header, the H1 tag, all these product pages, like sale, $50 off, good until, X date. I'm like, don't do that. Stop doing that. Okay. You're just creating so many problems when you do that. And they'd say it's actually against Amazon policy for you to do that, but it's bad practice. Okay. So that'd be one thing. So, mistakes in your PDP, product detail page, will result in a less than optimal user experience or UX. And that in turn ends up reducing your conversion rates. So think about your visitors as being mission oriented. When they arrive at your PDP, they're on the hunt for information that answers their questions, soothes their fears, and causes them to want to part with their hard-earned money and give it all to you, right? So don't get in their way. One of the things that I like to talk about is the word friction. I say the word friction a lot. And the product detail page is a place where you see a lot of mistakes causing friction, which can erode at your conversion rate. So the first thing that I look for is incomplete product information, such as vague or generic product descriptions that fail to highlight unique selling points or USPs, the lack of comprehensive specifications, dimensions, technical details, missing information on materials, care instructions, warranty. This leads to the quality of the written description itself. Very few people know how to write. They don't know how to write for consumers anymore. You need to use storytelling, feature benefit statements. I'm a huge believer in feature benefit statements, or if you want to get really technical about it, I call them FAB statements, feature advantage benefit statements. But you also need to use certain power words that cause consumers to act. So a few years ago, I wrote an article called The Most Powerful Words in Retail. And it was based on some marketing research that we did at a former employer of mine. Actually, it was Circuit City early in my time there. That market research showed what words, when they appear in a print ad or a direct mail piece or a website or whatever, what words actually increased the sales of that product. And so we came out with a ranked, prioritized list of words. And that article is, I think I have a copy of that article on my LinkedIn profile page, if I'm not mistaken. You need to get people to act, right? And you need to have a call to action on your product page. So, how the whole thing is written is really super important. Second, I look at the visual presentation on the page, and that encompasses a lot of different things. So it's not just content, but it's how content is arranged. I don't want to make this explanation all about website, web page design. That's, it's related, but it's a little bit different. I don't want to focus on the content itself. But I will say this, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And the story is worth 2,000 words, in my opinion. But I'll say you'll lose sales if you have low quality or insufficient product images, or you lack multiple product image views, or you don't have product videos, or you don't have 360-degree views, or you fail to show the product in context or in use, or, via lifestyle images. And of course, depending on the complexity of your product or the type of product it is, that may dictate how many images you need. But very rarely do I think that you can get away with less than 3 images of a product, front, side, top, front, back, top, something like that. But remember, your customer is not there with you. There's not a physical product or a store that they can go into and pick that thing up. So you need to, help them visualize what that thing looks like. And that also includes size, so proportion. I invented this thing I call a dime shot. So this happened in 2007, I think it was. Yeah, 2007. I was at Jewelry Television, and I just launched this new business called The Vault. The Vault is a high-end jewelry, gemstone, luxury product store, really high prices. And I had this idea because I was looking at return rates. I'm a big return rate guy. I love looking at return rates and trying to figure out, okay, where did we go wrong in how we described or showed or presented this product? And I noticed in the customer comments when they returned the product, that a lot of it was, I thought the gemstone or the ring or the earrings were going to be bigger. And so that was like one of the top reasons for return. So I said, Ron is our photography studio manager. I said, Ron, let's start putting a secondary picture with a dime in it right next to the product. And I said, I wanted to do a dime because a dime is ubiquitous. Everybody knows how big a dime is. Okay. So I put a dime next to the gemstone, and now everybody knows exactly how big that thing is. Here's the result. The result was that we cut our product return rates exactly in half, 50.0% reduction. And you think about how much it costs. Returns are expensive, right? That was a huge, huge, huge win. And I've seen over the years, I've seen a small number of retailers duplicate that. They're out there. If you look long and hard enough, you'll see other people doing it. I've always been surprised that not everybody does it. But the key is to find product that's ubiquitous. We also did a similar experiment with color. So in the case of color, gemstones, rubies, sapphires, and such, color is very important to people. And most people's monitors are not calibrated correctly once they get them home after a while. And so we started putting cans of soda like Coke. Okay, so everybody knows the red color of a Coke. And if you put that in a picture, a secondary picture, and compare it with the product, and then you compare the can of Coke in our picture with the can of Coke that's sitting on your desk, it gives you an idea of the actual color of the product. Those are some image stories for you. So, but the whole thing of a visual presentation also covers optimizing the page for things like pre-scroll or above the fold content. You want the most important information to be prioritized above the fold. And similar logic applies to a mobile page. Obviously you want to, be using, I'm drawing a blank, not adaptive responsive design on your site. So it appears prioritized and flows correct on a mobile device with the most important stuff appearing, higher up.
Yeah. No, certainly it's always a little suspicious when you only see good ratings and you're like, are we missing something here? Are these correct? Yeah. Very important points.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that, I think that mobile conversion rate, they still lag behind, but where mobile shines is in the early stages of the buyer journey, the discovery stage. But then they go home and they consummate the transaction on their desktop. And I may be biased because that's what I do personally. I hate checking out on a mobile device, but still you cannot argue with the importance of the impact that getting people's attention on a mobile device, that's where you get their attention a lot of times, and hopefully enough to either finish the transaction there or to at least remember to go and do it. Can complete your research and actually conduct the transaction on your desktop or your laptop, as the case may be. So what else was I was going to say? Social proof. So we can talk about social proof for a second. I think too many e-commerce sites underutilize the power of social proof on their product pages. They don't offer ratings and reviews. They lack user-generated content, which, if you're using Bazaar Voice or Power Reviews or whatever, you can put that user-generated content on there. You do it on Amazon now as well. Such a user-generated content is, that's customer photos, customer videos, in addition to the reviews themselves. So a lot of sites are not showcasing the testimonials or the expert endorsements. And that's important, not only in terms of influencing a customer to complete a transaction, it's also important from an SEO perspective. And I don't want to get too deep into the SEO stuff, but, from an SEO perspective, this qualifies as fresh content that Google or Bing or somebody, sees it and they go, okay, this page is active, right? So you'll get more of a lift, more fresh content you have. So that's really, to me, that's really super important. I want to tell you a funny story. So I had a client engagement who was all bought into the idea of social proof and all this. This is a small company. Can I say the name of it or? So Dr. Myers Health, some kind of supplement product. The sin that she committed was that she put all these fake reviews. I don't know if she did it herself, but they put a lot of fake reviews up. And if you guys remember, a few years back, the CEO for Whole Foods put up a bunch of fake reviews as well, and really, really suffered a public relations nightmare. And, would you trust Whole Foods with their reviews? No, I wouldn't. Well, same thing with this other company. So, and you can tell, right? Some customers may be willing to believe everything that they read, but some customers are, like me, are more discerning. And when your product reviews are obviously all written by the same person, same style, same grammar, same misspellings, et cetera, it becomes really obvious. And your 99% rating on every one of your products or better suddenly becomes totally unbelievable, especially when you're also selling on Amazon. And then you as a customer, you go to Amazon and you see that the ratings are not nearly as high on Amazon as they were on your own website. So you got to be honest. In fact, I would say this is what I say next is really the punchline for all of this. If you're going to put ratings and reviews up, and you should, if you are going to do that though, put the bad ones up there. It's okay. Okay. it shows that you're being honest, and hopefully you're learning from it and improving your product or improving your customer service. But it will, if you leave the bad ratings up there, sometimes they're written by people who used the product incorrectly or who had unrealistic expectations. I think that most people are smart enough to realize that you left it up there, you're an honest and transparent company, and they'll give you credit for that, right? But just make sure you have a good return policy after all that. Ratings and reviews are so important. A lot of people don't know this, but Amazon ratings and reviews. And for many years, they were really super important. One of the things that I like to tell people or instruct people on is, take them with a grain of salt, read them carefully. You have to decide for yourself if they're believable. And here's a little grain of wisdom for you. I've kind of figured this out that ratings and reviews, even though they're on a 1 to 5 scale in most cases, don't think that a 4.1 is a great rating. Actually, a 4.1 is a bad rating. So I tell my wife this especially. I say, honey, if you're going to buy something, if it has a 4.9 or a 4.8 or a 4.9, that to me is an A rating. A 5.0 means nothing. It's either too early in this product life cycle, or the people are being, there's something going on there, something illegal or sinister going on there. So rate it like a high school, class. It's 4.8, 4.9, that's an A. 4.6, 4.7, that's a B. And then 4.4, 4.5, that's a C. And then, the 2 more below that is a D. If you get a product that's rated below 4, that's really a failing product. Moving on, other things that I look for, miscellaneous weird stuff on a product page, mistakes. A mistake would be that you could have a cluttered or confusing page layout, not enough white space, gray text on white backgrounds, which designers love, consumers hate. And it's hard to find information like return policies or shipping details. Another one, this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is using PDFs for information on a page instead of just having it on the page as a separate web page, or on the page as HTML. So if you've got like product specs, don't put your product specification only in a link leading to a PDF that somebody has to download. First of all, from an SEO standpoint, that, there are very different versions of PDF creators indexed differently. So sometimes Google can do okay with it. A lot of times the content in a PDF is almost unreadable, or Google doesn't read it, doesn't index it, doesn't crawl it. If you've got important information, put it in HTML on the product detail page. And if you also want to have a PDF for download, okay, that's fine, but you can't limit yourself to only a PDF. That is not a valid substitute for HTML. So never, ever do that. Another thing that I look for or that I see as a common mistake is the lack of trust signals. So it could be lack of security badges or seals, missing information on shipping, returns, guarantees, all the FAQs, all that kind of stuff, the lack of contact information or customer support options. Here's one of the things that I think is the easiest win of all. The easiest win of all for an e-commerce company is to put your company's headquarters address and contact information in a very easy to find location. You see it all the time. Companies, you can't even tell if they're in the United States or if they're somewhere else. But I say, put your whole address there, because it is a huge trust signal. It's a huge comfort issue. When you show a customer that, hey, we're based in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we have a real address, we have a physical address, we've been here for, 25 years, that makes me want to buy from you, or at least it prevents me from not wanting to buy from you. Okay, so do that. Chances are your brand isn't all that well known. If you're Dell or you're IBM or you're Amazon, you can ignore, all of this. But if you put a PayPal logo, an Apple Pay logo, Google Pay, any of those express checkout logos on your product detail page, customers will tend to believe in the legitimacy of your site versus waiting to show your payment options in the checkout. Okay. Don't wait to do it there. In fact, one thing that I've advised a lot of my customers to do, my clients to do as well, is put in your global site footer, put a link down there for payment options, payments that we accept. Have a page for it. Say, we accept PayPal, we accept, all the credit cards, blah, blah, blah. Put that in there. It's another little tiny trust signal. And most, everybody thinks that they work for a great brand, but ask your customers if they know your brand and what they can say about your brand. What's your brand story? What's your brand promise? They can't tell you. Most of them don't know it. Only the employees do. So in absence of that, you need to put out every trust signal that you possibly can in terms of content. So the last thing that I would say in terms of mistakes is cross-selling opportunities. So when you think about a product that's on a page, then you want to think about what items can you cross-sell or what items is you upsell to instead. A lot of PDPs fail to capitalize on these opportunities at all, but these are opportunities to increase your average order value, right? So you've got their attention at this point. So if you've got their attention, use that to your advantage and sell a pack of batteries, right? Or sell some complementary item. So this might include the absence of related product recommendations or frequently bought together suggestions. Let's see, it's not enough to do this. Your suggestions need to make sense so that they need to be human reviewed on a regular basis, because if you're using an automated platform, you can end up getting suggestions that really just don't make any sense. So if you're selling a bikini, you don't want the automated algorithm to suggest a pair of men's shoes on that page. But I've seen that, it happens. So, automation is fine, but here's the thing that you got to remember about cross-selling, upselling, automation, like Certona, and there's other ones out there. Remember that if you have a high velocity site, if you're selling a lot of transactions, those algorithms work a lot better. But if you're a low volume site, they're just not going to work nearly as well. And you need to spend more time doing human reviews.
Really good points. So you talked about a lot of good things that people could look for, the possible mistakes right now in their product details page and their content, ways to improve that. So now if someone's wanting to put these into place, what if they have hundreds or thousands of product descriptions? How do they generate all that content at scale? How do you scale up these suggestions you're talking about?
Yeah, it can be impossible. I've worked for companies that have had, 30,000, 40,000 SKUs, and I've had small teams, what I call web merchandisers, or in one company we call them web data specialists. But anyway, it's always a small team, handful of people that write these things. They've got a pretty significant challenge. In a perfect world, you'd like to have every single product have a nice long description, how it's going to be used, feature advantage benefit statements, some sort of compelling story about how it changed the world and made somebody's life better, maybe, saved them from, eternity in hell and blah, blah, blah. That's not possible. It's not realistic. So my suggestion is this. First, make it a part of the new item setup process. Every merchandising organization, retailer, whatever, anybody who's selling something generally has a process for what happens when that product comes in the door for the first time, or even before it comes in the door for the first time. What does that new item setup process look like? You've got to get that item set up in your accounting systems, your CMS, various whatever systems you have, and every company's different. But make it part of the new item setup process, which should be a workflow. Okay. People touch that workflow, from finance people to merchants to inventory people and all that. So that makes it a team exercise. And this document should follow this product around the building electronically. Team exercise with all these different contributors. This can and should include your vendors as well. I would say ensure your vendors and your merchants understand that they need to give you, as the person who's setting it up for the web, they need to give you all of the information in product samples. Ask for product samples, especially if this is a product that's important. So, part of your process should be that you classify products into, some sort of categorization system. I'll just, for example's sake, I'll make it really simple. An ABC, okay? An A product is super highly important. You've got to have a great description. A B product is, okay, we'll try. And a C product is, we're not going to waste our time writing a description on that. We're just going to put it out there. All it is it's a pack of batteries, So try to do that. But then set realistic expectations internally among your organization internally, and then also among your vendors. So talking about customers here, mostly I'm talking about internal expectations, because what I've seen happen many times is, the VP of merchandising will pull up a product detail page for some product and see almost no content written there. Well, he or she should understand that you got 5 people writing, for 30,000 SKUs. So you just don't have the bandwidth to be able to do it for every single product. So set those expectations, and the merchants themselves, the merchants are the other one, all your buyers. So prioritize and focus on important product, and then the segue to that is promotions, focus on your promotions. So you want to coordinate with the category team. So, I was Circuit City's laptop computer at one point. And so that, when I left and they took over the website, all the merchandising functions, I coordinated with my successor and then with other people on, the laptop team, the store category team, the advertising team. And so, if I knew a new laptop was going to come in, we want to get that one, as part of the workflow, as part of the new item setup process. But then I also want to know, here's the important part. I want to also know that, John has a plan to advertise this thing in, USA Today or some newspaper or some website or some magazine or wherever. We've got additional plans in addition to, a social media launch plan, an email campaign, whatever that campaign is. If it's a product that's going to be part of a major launch campaign, obviously that should be one of your A products that gets some time and attention and love in terms of writing its product detail page, and then possibly even writing a good solid landing page for it. You may want to do a landing page in addition to the product page. It's something you can debate about all day long. Do you want to have a landing page in addition to a product detail page, or just have the product page serve as the landing page? I think there's variables that could make you answer that question either way.
Your comment on prioritizing is critical. For any company out there that's creating a lot of content, you simply do not have the bandwidth to create as much as you want. For even enterprises, they don't have the bandwidth to create as much as they would like to. So you have to prioritize. And that means you're going to have to make some of your products or content a C level so that some can have that extra oomph given to them as an A-level product. And there's so many data sources now that can help you understand which of my products should be A-level so that you can prioritize that. The hardest part for people is to say those C levels and say, all right, it's okay. These ones, we can leave them off. I like the idea you had of creating a process too. Whenever something new comes in, this is what we do for that. So great ideas there.
Yeah. Jonathan, I would actually add just a little bit of a story. In one of my most recent, in the case of a very recent employer of mine, they did not have a new item setup process, which I found astonishing. And then the company president thought that he would play buyer for a day. So he went out and he bought this product. High-level agreement between the execs of two companies to buy this product. And he didn't know how to do a product launch. So there was no support for this product, which was a very expensive product. And they went out and they made a huge inventory investment into this product. And they got a product detail page up. It was sparse. And so they have a B2B component to their business as well. And they gave it to the B2B reps and they said, here, go out and sell this. Well, they never had a plan. They never had a new item setup process. And so the product was set up in systems sparsely and incompletely. And part of the new item setup process should be, what's the launch plan? So a perfect new item setup process is going to have in it, towards the end of it, it's a document, right? It's almost like a checklist. This checklist, it's going to say, okay, here's how we are going to launch this product. Okay, here's the plan. This is what we're going to do. Well, there was no document. The company didn't have a document. I came in and I invented it. But it was too late for this product, which had been launched prior to my arrival at the company. So we were playing catch up from the time that I got there, but there was no plan for an email campaign, a social media campaign, a website landing page, a pay-per-click ad campaign. They really had no idea how they were going to sell this thing. And so when they launched it on day one, there were no sales. Day two, no sales. On day three, no sales. And everyone was like, why in the hell aren't there any sales? Well, because you have no launch campaign, nothing. So it's critically important to have all that stuff. That's all content. It's all content. Content will sell. Content drives sales. Content drives promotions. So you can't just go and buy products and expect that they're just going to magically sell. They don't.
That's great advice, Rick. I think we could spend at least another couple of podcasts just going into some of the details of some of the stuff you've gone over here. Let me switch to asking you a question, things that you've learned from your career. If you could go back in a time machine, talk to yourself at the very beginning of your career back in the 90s, what thing have you learned now that you wish you would have known then?
Oh, boy, that's a good one. Okay, so this is a off the top of my head answer. I reserve the right to call you up later and tell you, I thought of a better answer. Early in my career was early in the days of e-commerce, and people, I'm talking about coworkers, merchants, and even a lot of customers did not really appreciate the potential sales volume or value, or the impact of branding on the business, the impact of customer experience. They just didn't understand really much of anything about e-commerce in general. And so getting resources, getting the cooperation of executives, of coworkers, the buy-in of customers, the buy-in of, say, store managers, education is very important. So that's what I'm saying is, and I think this is still true today in a lot of organizations. Some organizations are totally on board and they've been on board for a while. They totally get it. A lot of organizations, there's a lot more organizations than people realize who are still either not involved in e-commerce at all or are just really, really failing at their efforts. And a lot of it has to do with just understanding the potential and understanding the processes and all the requirements in terms of resources and skill sets that e-commerce really has. So, if you come into an organization as the director of e-commerce and digital marketing, or the VP or the chief digital, whatever you are, a huge part of your job responsibility, I think, is to educate everybody, all those people around you. I'll give you a story. When I relaunched CircuitCity.com in 1999, there was a fear within our store personnel. We had 550 stores throughout the country at the time. And the fear among the salespeople, the store managers, the district managers was palpable. It was just an incredible. Circuit City benefited from the fact that I was a former store manager. And so I was able to predict and totally understand what they were fearing. And so I took some time and I went out around the country. I talked to district managers, store managers, and salespeople all over the country. And I said, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what I think is going to happen. So first of all, we're going to revise your comp plan so that all of the sales that come out of your zip codes are going to be, you're going to get credit for sales that happen. And we pioneered buy online, pay in store, and it worked really well. We had a lot of people who, customers who purchased from us online, they went and picked it up in the store. Well, the stores got credit for all of those sales. The stores actually even got credit for customers who lived within their store area, but never even went into the store. Here's a specific example that I gave as I was going around the country. So let's say I'm a customer and I'm interested in buying a big screen TV. Okay. I typically, before e-commerce, I would go into the store and I would spend probably an hour with a commissioned salesperson and, have that person walk me around the TV department, educate me about big screen TVs, make recommendations, all that stuff. It's time consuming. And at the end, this customer may walk out with a TV, may walk out without a TV. You don't really know. But I said to these guys, some of who were in my own store, I said, guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write all this content. Okay. So I wrote all the articles. If you go back to the Wayback Machine and to that time area, if they're still up there, and you look at all the articles, I wrote all of the articles for big screen TVs, for computers, for audio equipment, all that stuff. The only thing I didn't write personally was all the car audio stuff because I can't spell car audio. So I wrote all that stuff and I said, hey, guys, here's what's going to happen. Customers are going to go to our website. They're going to read the article about how to buy a big screen TV. And here's a little buying guide. And they're going to do their compare. They're going to do all this research. They're going to come in with 80, 90% of the questions that they might have already answered. And they're only going to spend, instead of an hour, they're going to spend 10 minutes with you asking a couple of questions that weren't addressed or were specific to a certain model or whatever. You're going to spend 10, 15 minutes with them instead of an hour, and you're going to get sales a lot faster. So that's the design. That was the intent behind all of our content. And it turned out to work exactly that way. There were a lot of guys, and I know this is true because a lot of the guys in my own former store, kept in touch with after I left and went to corporate. They said, yeah, I'm making more money now with the website than I was before. I'm getting to a lot of customers and they're all basically pre-qualified. So pre-qualified meaning, I understood a sales process and I was pre-qualifying customers. So yeah, did I know that right away early on? No, but I picked up on it pretty quickly. And it's something that I think, I would advise anybody who's getting into e-commerce as any kind of e-commerce participant, worker, leader, whatever. It's understand that you may think you're working for e-commerce, but you're working for a company, and you need to be thinking in terms of omni-channel, not multi-channel, not siloed. Think in terms of omni-channel. Think about how your brand promise, your brand messaging, your brand image, all this stuff, how that extends to all channels, including the channel that you're a part of. You need to integrate. Just be part of the business. Don't be focused so much only on e-commerce.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. It's really, I think in any role, you need to evangelize the specific things that people outside of your role don't know about so that you can work better together, allay fears like you were talking about. Great advice. So tell us a little bit, if someone wanted to connect with you, Rick, online, you run Small Business Coach. Tell us a little bit about that, where people can find it and how people can connect with you there.
Yeah, I started e-commerce coaching for small businesses back in 2007. So I've been doing it since then. And so it's been, 17 years. I focus mainly on small businesses. I've worked with some larger businesses like Land's End Business Outfitters, for example, is a big, billion-dollar business. So there's been a few larger clients, but typically I'm working with smaller clients. They're either just starting out in e-commerce or they're doing e-commerce, but they're doing it at a small scale. I'll give you a couple of examples that are fairly common in terms of what I'm doing. I've worked with a lot of clients on just establishing and building up Amazon sales or marketplace sales in general, but mostly Amazon. That's been a big one. Another one is staffing and just developing a staffing model. So, for example, one of my clients was Reed's Jewelers a few years back. They didn't have much of an e-commerce presence, and spent a lot of time on with them was putting together this staffing plan over X number of years, 4 years. Say, okay, year one, you want to get this guy, that guy, that guy. Year two, you want to get, 2, 3, 4 more people, and then show them how the division of labor would follow these expansions of capabilities. So, and then a lot of it has to do with, digital marketing and vendor selection. I help them pick vendors, pick an email service provider, social media tools, things like that. So really it's been pretty broad, pretty wide ranging in terms of, what I'm doing. And it's not just e-commerce, it's marketing. So I think that I'm fairly well qualified to help you. If you're a small business, I'm pretty knowledgeable in merchandising and inventory management, marketing, whether it's digital marketing or traditional marketing, e-commerce and digital product management, project management. Those are the areas that I focus on the most.
Excellent. So it's smallbizcoach.biz, correct?
Right. Smallbizcoach.biz.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rick. Really appreciate all the insights. Really a huge amount of good advice here for people to get started on e-commerce, or even if you're in e-commerce, to go through some of these and try implementing them and make some improvements. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Cutting Edge Web Content Development is brought to you by Butter CMS. To find out how you can build better with Butter, stop wasting dev time, and free your marketers from your legacy CMS, visit buttercms.com. Also, make sure to search for Cutting Edge Web Content Development in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Butter CMS, thank you for listening.